In 1971, a movie ticket in America cost about $1.50. A gallon of gas, 36 cents. A brand new house, around $25,000. Now here's the thing, nobody robbed you. No foreign enemy attacked your savings account. No disaster wiped out your wealth overnight. You just lived. You existed. You went to work, paid your bills, maybe put some money aside, and quietly, without a single announcement, without a single warning label, the purchasing power of every dollar you held got slowly, methodically drained. That process has a name. You've heard it 1,000 times. It shows up in Fed announcements, in presidential speeches, in economics textbooks. But nobody ever told you the full truth about what it actually does to you. Today we fix that. Why this matters right now, 050 to 140. Let's establish why this conversation is urgent. Not theoretically urgent, actually urgent. In June 2022, U.S. inflation hit 9.1%. That was the highest rate in over 40 years. The Federal Reserve responded by raising interest rates 11 times in roughly 18 months, the most aggressive rate hiking cycle since the early 1980s. They called it under control. Technically, they weren't wrong. Inflation came down, but here's what didn't come down: prices. That's the part people miss. When inflation cools, it doesn't mean things get cheaper. It means prices are rising slower. Everything that got expensive, groceries, rent, insurance, healthcare, stayed expensive. The damage was already done. And the average American? They're still feeling it. Surveys in 2024 showed that a majority of Americans, across income levels, said they felt financially worse off than they did 4 years ago. Even with a job, even with a paycheck. So what exactly happened? And more importantly, why does it keep happening? How inflation actually works, 140 to 310. Let's strip this down to the actual mechanism. No jargon, no textbook. Imagine the entire US economy is a room. In that room, there are 100 apples. And in people's wallets, there's a total of $100. So naturally, one apple costs $1. Supply, demand, equilibrium. Fine. Now imagine the government prints another $100 and puts it into circulation. Now there's $200 in the room, but the apples? Still 100. So now each apple costs $2. The apples didn't change. The work that produced them didn't change. What changed was the number of dollars chasing them. That's the core of inflation. More money, same stuff, higher prices. Now, it's not always caused by money printing. Sometimes demand surges and supply can't keep up. Sometimes production costs spike, oil prices, labor costs, raw materials, and businesses pass that cost on to you. Sometimes global supply chains collapse like they did during COVID, and suddenly there's a shortage of everything from microchips to baby formula. Different triggers, same result. Your dollar buys less than it did yesterday. But here's the version of this story that almost nobody tells you. The uncomfortable mechanism, 310 to 440. Inflation isn't just an economic phenomenon, it's a tax, a hidden one. Arguably the most elegantly designed tax in the history of government, because it requires no legislation, no vote, no public debate, and no one sends you a bill. Here's how it functions as a tax. When the US government needs money to fund wars, stimulus packages, infrastructure, whatever, it has a few options. It can raise taxes, which is politically unpopular. It can borrow money by issuing bonds, or it can work with the Federal Reserve to expand the money supply. When new money enters the system, it doesn't arrive everywhere at once. It goes to the government first, to banks, to large financial institutions. You're receiving money with less purchasing power than the people who got it first. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It has a name, the Cantillon effect, named after 18th century economist Richard Cantillon, who first described it. The people closest to the money creation benefit. Everyone else absorbs the cost. Now let's do the math that your bank is definitely not putting in a brochure. Your savings account is earning, let's say, 2% interest. Inflation is running at 4%. Your real return, what you're actually gaining in purchasing power, is -2%. Real return equals nominal interest rate minus inflation rate. 2 minus 4 equals -2. Your balance goes up, your wealth goes down, simultaneously, every single year. And it feels like nothing because the number on your screen is technically larger. That's not a savings account. That's a slow leak. Hype versus reality, 440 to 525. Now, to be fair, economists will tell you that a little inflation is actually good. The Federal Reserve targets 2% annually. If you hold real assets, things with intrinsic value, inflation often works in your favor. But if you're renting, if your wealth is mostly cash in a savings account, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and spending most of your income on groceries, gas, and rent, which is the reality for a significant portion of working Americans, then inflation isn't an abstract economic metric. It's the reason you can't get ahead, no matter how hard you work. Zoom out, bigger picture, 525 to 620. Here's where this gets historically unsettling. Since 1913, the year the Federal Reserve was established, the US dollar has lost approximately 97% of its purchasing power. Not 10%, not 30%, 97%. What cost $1 in 1913 costs roughly $30 today. That's not a rounding error. That's a structural, century-long erosion of value built directly into the system, and the consequences extend beyond grocery bills. Retirees living on fixed incomes watch their real purchasing power quietly shrink year after year, even if their Social Security check technically increases. Pension funds, corporate bonds, long-term savings vehicles, all of them are quietly losing the race against inflation. Young Americans saving for a house? The median home price in the U.S. went from around $30,000 in 1970 to over $400,000 today. Wages did not keep pace, not even close. And then there's the social dimension, which historians understand better than economists. Hyperinflation episodes, Weimar Germany in 1923, Zimbabwe in 2008, Venezuela in the 2010s. These weren't just financial events. They were social unravelings. When people feel that the value of their work, their savings, their future is being silently confiscated, trust collapses in institutions, in governments, in the system itself. Those are extreme cases, but they exist on the same spectrum. They're just further down the road. Closing, 620 to 7. So what do you do about it? There are answers to that question, real ones. Assets that historically outpace inflation. Strategies that people on both ends of the income spectrum have used to protect purchasing power. But that's not what today was about.